Hello, today I'll be ranking the Queensryche discography. So, Queensryche was the band that got me started with progressive metal. Empire was my first Queensryche album. I still remember hearing that album for the first time and really being impressed with what I was hearing. And really enjoying Pacific songs too, like The Thin Line or Jet City Woman. But yeah, also I do want to show you guys this. A puzzle piece signed by all band members of the current lineup. And the art of the puzzle piece is actually from the artwork of their latest album, The Verdict. And I don't know if this is available anymore. It was on Pledge Music, but if you see it, definitely get it if you're interested in stuff that's hard to find like this, or at least hard to find nowadays, maybe. But anyways, let's go ahead and get to the ranking. I'll be going from worst to best. Keep in mind, this is my personal ranking. You don't have to agree with my ranking, but feel free to let me know your ranking in the comment section below. I'd definitely be interested in hearing what your rankings or seeing what your rankings would be. But let's go ahead and get started. At the bottom, I put Dedicated to Chaos. There's nothing worth returning to with this album for me personally. And it also, in my opinion, has some of their laziest songwriting and some of the most uninteresting riffs too in their discography. But yeah, just not a big fan of this album, and I think it's easily their worst. Either this album or the next one in my ranking. But the next one is Frequency Unknown. Everything about this album comes off either bitter or insanely petty. But yeah, it's just not a good album, and honestly, kind of a waste of time, if we're being honest here. But next we have Operation Mindcrime 2. I might get flack for putting this album so low, because I know there are a little, well, I don't know about a little group, but I know there is a group of people that do like this album, but this album just doesn't cut it for me. I don't think this album really needs to exist. I think they should have left Operation Mindcrime alone. And if I remember correctly, I believe either 2 or 3 members were not interested in making this album or making a sequel. But I do remember Jeff Tate supporting this idea, and yeah, it's just not a really good album, and it should have never been made. Next we have American Soldier. Now, the thing with this album, I like the concept, I like the approach they went with, I guess, the songwriting, but the problem is just the songs. I just think the songs are really boring and uninteresting. Now, I have seen a little bit of love for this album, but, I mean, not a lot, but I have seen some, though. The album isn't awful, I just think it's really boring and uninteresting, again. But just because it's not for me doesn't mean it's not for you. You can like it if you like, but again, American Soldier just isn't really my thing. But next we have Q2K, and this album feels like a bunch of filler just put together, in my opinion. But still, I do like a few songs on the album, like Falling Down and Liquid Sky, and also the second track on the album, but this album, it just lacks replay value for me. But next we have the self-titled album from 2013, I believe. It's a good album. It is my least favorite of the 3 albums we've gotten so far with Todd La Torre, but again, I do like the album overall. And next we have Tribe, and my placing of this album might stir a few people up, maybe, who knows, but I don't know, I think this album's kind of underrated. Some of my favorites are Open, the title track, and the insanely underrated The Art of Life. And I think Blood is another pretty good song on the album too. But next we have Here in the Now Frontier. Now, putting this album above the self-titled, I know I might get flack for that, but I don't know. Over time, this album really grew on me. Now, for the longest time, I thought it was crap, but I continued to give it more chances, and now I like the album. I don't love it, but I like it. Some of my favorites are Sign of the Times and Cuckoo's Nest, and You, and what else? Well, there is the song All I Want, which has Chris DeGarmo on lead vocals. Some fans don't like it. I think it's okay. Not one of my favorites, but I think it's okay, though. Um, the Voice Inside is another one of my favorites on the album, too. But yeah, I don't love it, but I do like it, this album. But I don't think it deserves as much hate as it gets. But yeah, again, I do like the album. And next we have Condition Human, and I love this album. I've seen a little bit of hate for it. I mean, mostly from people that are kind of, I guess you could say, stuck in the past, only care about the Jeff Tate stuff. But if you haven't given this album a chance, please give it a chance. And if you didn't like it at first, give it another chance, because I think this album is really good. But they really stepped things up, in my opinion, with their next album, or the next album in my ranking, that being The Verdict, which is their latest album, and it's one of my favorite albums of the year. I'm really loving this album, and I think it's their best so far with Todd Tory. Now, at the start, when this album came out, I was still in debate about if I like this album or Condition Human more, but I think I might like this album more. But yeah, really enjoying this album still. Some of my favorites are Blood of the Levant, Man the Machine, Light Years, Dark Reverie, Bent, which I think is really good. Now, Portrait, I think this song will go down as one of the most underrated songs. Portrait is just, I don't know, there's just something unique about it on the album, and I don't know, I just really like it. But next we have the Warning. One of their classic albums, and still has many songs that still hold up for me today, like Warning, Deliverance, which I think is underrated, and of course Road to Madness, which is another one of my personal favorites on the album. But yeah, The Warning, what can you say that hasn't been said already? It's an excellent album. And then next we have Rage for Order. Definitely different compared to the rest of their albums in the 80s, but I really like this one. It does have its share of underrated songs like The Whisper and Screaming in Digital and Chemical Youth. But yeah, this is a really good album, definitely unique in their discography too. And next we have Promised Land. Not sure what people think about my placing of this album in my ranking, but now I'll be honest. This album and the previous two albums in my ranking, they kind of swap back and forth or move around within my ranking sometimes, but I don't know. I really love Promised Land. It's maybe their darkest album, but I don't know. I really love this album, and I did review the album on my channel, so if you haven't seen it, make sure to check it out after this video. But some of my favorites are I Am I, Bridge, the title track, the underrated Disconnected. But yeah, I love this album. And next we have Empire. I might get flack for putting this album above The Warning and Rage for Order, but because it's mainstream or whatever, but who cares, man. This album, it's really good. I mean, of course it was going to be high in my ranking. I mean, it was the first Queensryche album I ever heard, so there's going to be a little bit of bias, but I will try to hold back, though. But anyways, yeah, I love this album. Some of my favorites on the album are Best I Can, Thin Line, Just City Woman, the title track, of course, Silent Lucidity, and then there's the underrated Hand on Heart. But yeah, this is definitely a great album for sure. And if you liked Empire, you should check out the album Parallels by Fates Warning. I'm sure some of you have already heard it, but for those who haven't heard it, definitely give it a listen. And now at the top, I have Operation Mindcrime. Now, I will be honest, this album and Empire do go back and forth for number one for me, but there's no way around it. It's definitely their best. Has an interesting concept, and in general, there's just a lot to like with this album, and there's still a great number of songs that still hold up for me today. And in my opinion, within the singles of this album, I think the title track is insanely underrated. It's always been one of my personal favorites on the album, but yeah. Operation Mindcrime, definitely one of the greatest concept metal albums of all time, along with, of course, Seventh Son of a Seventh Son by Iron Maiden. But anyways, that's my ranking. Let me know your thoughts on my ranking. Let me know your ranking in the comment section below. I'd definitely be interested in seeing what your ranking will look like. And let me know some of your least favorite or favorite songs from this band and all that good stuff. But anyways, thanks for watching. Please leave a comment and a like. Subscribe. Have a nice day and take care.